Bitcoiners, I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Things are going great today. One of the best days ever. We're winning. We're winning World War III here, guys. Quentin, good morning. Robert Schmidt, happy weekend night shift Bitcoiners. Indeed. I guess, is it your Friday, Robert Schmidt? I'm not sure. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Pump your bags, boomers. Indeed, T-Dog Yo-Yo. Everyone can pump their bags. Good morning, Hassan. Good morning. Hope you're doing great. Thomas, what a beautiful morning, hodlers. We all front ran the institutions. Well done. Indeed. Well done. Good morning, orange team. Green team is so effed. So screwed. They're done. They're done. They don't even know how done they are. Good morning, folks. Let's effing. Oh, we love it. Sean recommends. Christine, good morning. Thanks for coming, Christine. We love you having you here. Too many dudes, but I love all the dudes. Don't get me wrong. We're not trying to DEI the breakup gang here, but we do love that that all kinds of people come. John, good morning. If you are not in awe, you are not paying attention. That is a great way to put it. John Galt, good morning, LFG, indeed. Good morning, gentlemen. Start your engines. Good morning, everyone. Dave, good morning. Hope you're doing great. B for victory. Bomata, good morning, Bitcoiners. Indeed. P-Man. Hey, all fine day to be a no EY launderer. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Muslim Bitcoiner, assalamu alaikum, all the orange people. We love it. I do 3/12s, 3 p.m. to 3 a.m., Monday to Wednesday. Not so bad, not so bad. 6102 in reverse. That's what we're talking about today. We're literally talking about 6102 in reverse. That's kind of my theme. Good morning, familia. Let me just see if Rumble's running. I like to know. There's nothing more frustrating to me than when I finish a live stream and I find out that somehow Rumble didn't kick in. It drives me absolutely nuts. But it looks like we're going just fine. I'll come back to the Rumble folks for their comments later, but it's working. So let me just acknowledge that Rumble's working. YouTube seems like it's working. X, I bet, is working. And the sun is up. We got a perfect sunrise today. It was amazing. It was gorgeous. It was pink. It was orange. It was all kinds of great colors. And money tech running fine. All that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what is new. Good morning, Aqualodge. Jose can confirm the sun is indeed out. We love it. The sun's super out. We love it. All right, now we got some good Moscow time today. Because the losers are losing, the Moscow time is getting like they're starting to barf Moscow time out everywhere. It's just like, oh, Moscow time, we're losing. So here we go. This one happened yesterday. So a lot was going on yesterday. You didn't really need to know this. They brought Anthony Fauci. This is probably one of the last times you'll see him not falling from space, right? So they brought him yesterday. He was testifying in Congress. All right, and this is what he said. All right, so they're like, what about this, Fauci? What about that? And they were saying to him, what about all the social distancing guidelines, right? What about those? And he goes, Fauci admits to Congress that certain COVID social distancing guidelines lacked scientific basis. His answer, his quote, it just sort of happened. Whoops, it just happened, right? It just happened. Don't worry about it. Another headline, Dr. Fauci admits social distancing rules just appeared out of nowhere. What? There they are, social distancing rules. Oh, what? So that's what Fauci said yesterday. So you might have missed it. As I said, enjoy seeing Fauci while you can, alive in the world, right? Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy his testimonies. We used to get a steady diet. We'll look back on it. I think one day there'll be shows. There'll just be shows of Fauci lying and the stuff he tried to do without laughing at the same time. I think it'll become a form of comedy in the future. Of course, it'll always end with, and then they brought him on a rocket up to space. There's going to be like a mask to make sure they don't get depressurized. It'll be like, You see the mask they put on that guy who jumped and beat up the judge the other day? They had to put him in a mask and like the Magneto hand things. It'll be, he'll have a kind of costume or something when they bring him up, but that'll be that. All right. So there's a next one here is from the UK. Don't let anyone tell you that there's lack of choice in the communist world. All right. So now I'm an anti-communist. Okay. I am anti-communist, anti-socialist, all that stuff, right? Anti-Marxist. I'm all of those things. But usually people like me who are anti-Marxist and anti-communist will often root it in consumer culture, right? That's not what I'm doing here. Because the consumer culture, the fiat people, when they criticize the socialist form of capitalism, they're all just upset that there aren't what about choice? I want more chocolate bars and that kind of stuff, right? So now they might not get more chocolate bars in the communist world, but there's choices. Here's the headline, right? NHS, that's the National Health Service in the UK. All right, so the NHS asked parents to choose from 12 genders, 10 sexual preferences, and 159 religions. Who said there's no choice in Marxism? 12 genders, that's a lot of choice, guys. You can really, there's a lot going on over there. Just don't use that one anymore, the no choice. Oh, this one's good. All right, so as you know, in part of my day job, I program events, right? I program events. I did it for CoinDesk for years. I programmed Consensus. I programmed Bitcoin magazines, live events, Bitcoin Nashville this summer, July 25th to 27th. We've got other events, some of them not announced yet. Will probably be in Hong Kong in May, which I'm looking forward to. I haven't been in Hong Kong since it was taken over by the Chinese government as a trade so that they would fit into the money laundering scheme. We'll talk about that another time. But one of the events that I took inspiration and guidance from was the WEF, right? The World Economic Forum. That's just an event, by the way, guys. If you didn't know that, it's an event. Their business model is to charge people to help them program and all this stuff. But there's an event coming up, right? They always have their big Davos event at the end of January. And so they're coming out, as any event does, with their agenda, right? Their program, right? So they're coming out with their program, and they come out with their theme, right? I'm going to read their marketing, right? So I imagine this is done just like it is at Bitcoin Magazine. Are you guys ready with the agenda? Are you going to publish the agenda? Are you going to put the quote? Are you going to put the marketing material out, right? So they did it. They came out with their marketing material. I'm not kidding. This is their actual headline, and this is what they're using to advertise their event this year. All right. So it's called Rebuilding Trust. It's their headline. I'm not kidding. Davos 2024 is the 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. Under the theme, Rebuilding Trust, so they came up with a theme. The meeting aims to restore collective agency and reinforce the fundamental principles of transparency, consistency, and accountability among leaders. Isn't that nice? Isn't it nice? Isn't it great? The program embodies a back-to-basics spirit of open and constructive dialogue between leaders of government, business, and civil society. The goal is to help connect the dots in an increasingly complex environment and provide foresight by introducing the latest advances in science, industry, and society. Throughout the week, sessions will feature the latest proposals for progress on global security, trade, economic growth, jobs, climate, and nature action, the energy transition, technological disruption, and health and well-being. Wow, they're going to rebuild trust. Guys, they're going to be rebuilding trust at Davos this year. Wow, good for them. Good for them. Good for them. Okay, so we got a couple here from Politico. We were talking about Politico yesterday. Remember their headline yesterday when it was the Epstein list in quotes? I'm not sure Politico works on X anymore, by the way. I couldn't get any link to Politico from X this morning. So if anyone out there can verify, I'm not sure Politico is accessible anymore as of yesterday and today on X. It might have actually been banned. It might have been cut, or not banned, but the links cut from X because maybe too much Moscow time, I'm not sure. But here's one of their headlines, right? So this is from Politico yesterday. Ray Epps, pro-Trump rioter, smeared by conspiracy theorists, gets probation for role in Capitol. That's good news, according to Politico, right? He was smeared and now he gets a little bit of benefit. It's good for him. And we talked about Taylor Swift yesterday, the Taylor Swift stuff, right? Some people accusing Taylor Swift of being an Operation Mockingbird asset, right? So some people out there saying she's actually working for the government. Politico says, haters gonna hate. Pentagon defends Taylor Swift against Fox News. If you get into the article, they don't actually deny it, but they defended her, so that's pretty good for them, right? So Pentagon, because everyone knows the Pentagon, that's its number one order of business, is to defend pop stars when people make rumors about them. So the Pentagon, on top of it here, they're going to defend, not America so much, but Taylor Swift, right? So it's very important. Politico also, they're not done yet, right? They're not done yet. So they got the Ray Epps one, they got the Taylor Swift one. Now this one here, you got to pay attention to this headline, all right? So according to Politico, the January 6th committee, so that was a federal committee in Washington, D.C., they helped guide, according to Politico, the January 6th committee helped guide the early days of the Georgia Trump probe. So it's according to Politico, they guided it. Okay, they just guided the Trump prosecution by Fanni. So it's just a guiding, right? Now, some people say that they're not supposed to do that, right? Some people say that that's not great. Some people actually say that that's collusion and is proof of corruption. But I mean, if you just change corrupt and collude and unconstitutional centralization of powers, where the judiciary, which is never supposed to meet with the executive branch, right, let alone build them. So they actually build them. I was mentioning that yesterday. Kaneko with the Great talking about how Fanni Willis exposed for secretly collaborating with the January 6th committee before indicting Donald Trump. Nathan Wade, who she was sexing with, Willis's chief prosecutor and alleged romantic partner, documented 4 meetings held between the January 6th committee and the prosecutor team. And the good news is they charged them. So that's the good news, right? So they guided them, and compensation for guiding them, they actually billed them. So it's just a perfect paper trail. It's just perfect. It's excellent, right? So that's what happened yesterday. That's our Moscow time for today. Now, the Politico doing this, Fanni Willis, Ray Epps, the people defending Ray Epps, the people creating the National Health Service, choice questionnaire. A lot of this stuff starts to remind me, or even this, right? So Trump yesterday had his case with, I think it's the Mar-a-Lago one. I always get confused. I think he was in New York. Yeah, so it's Judge Engoron. Remember this judge? So this judge actually prevented Trump from even speaking in his defense at the trial. So this is the one who already made a summary judgment. So there was no actual adjudication. It was a summary judgment. And now he's not even allowed to give closing remarks in the civil trial. And Greg Price reminds us that everyone at the bank that Donald Trump is accused of defrauding said when they were called as witnesses that they did due diligence on the loans they gave as businesses. Trump paid back the loans, and the bank made a profit and wanted the same relationship again, and everyone was happy. But that was the crime. Okay, that was the crime. And all of this makes me think, and it's, you can think long and hard, and I know the blackmail infrastructure is there. I know such a thing as evil does exist, right? I'm not closing my minds to evil. I'm not forgetting about evil. There are evil people. There are evil forces, demonic forces. They really exist, and I believe in them, right? That's my personal opinion. But I also believe that a lot of what we see is incompetence, that we're looking at very impressive losers, like the greatest losers the world has ever produced. The greatest losers the world has ever produced because their subconscious programming is all made of sludgy fiat with no feedback and no ability to process information and move forward in a constructive way. They just give, the kind of language that we saw with the WEF thing, right? The connect the dots in an increasingly complex environment and provide foresight, all of this stuff, the fundamental principles of transparency, consistency, and accountability. All of this gobbledygook is really just the sludge that is in people's brains from their subconscious having root key access from fiat money, which has literally programmed people's wants and fears and the direction they head in and where they go. Scott Adams mentioned this yesterday, and where to draw the line on evil and incompetence, I don't know. I don't know if we have to really even bother figuring out where the line is. We know there's evil, and we can certainly see there's incompetence, right? Judge Engoron, incompetent. Fanni Willis. Fanni Willis is not part of they and a conspiracy theory to destroy you. She is a low IQ, stupid person who is just trying to get a better job. And you can understand her, right? She thought, now she got some money, she's going to go on a cruise, she's going to have fun with her boyfriend. They made it, right? All they had to do was try to do their jobs, see the world in terms that would be supported and reinforced by others. So here's what Scott Adams says might be going on as well. And I tend to agree with him. He says, what if they, and he puts they in quotations, the same they don't want it, they are out to get us, they are never going to accept Bitcoin, that they, right, the royal they. What if they is nothing but the incompetence crisis, making it look as if there is a conspiracy to break everything? So again, I do believe there's evil forces. I do believe there are things that are happening by design that are deliberate. But at the same time, there's also a force out there that has sludged people under their spell, and it comes from the money. And the ETF, and this is why I bring it all up, because the ETF that we saw, the ETF that was approved yesterday, can be thought of in a historical sense as reversing this force, this physics that went into centralizing many of our institutions. I call it often the World War II war machine, right? Everything that came in to centralize that, to win that war, is actually breaking. And Balaji Srinivasan, and if you don't know Balaji, you got to know Balaji. Balaji yesterday did an amazing historical analysis of what happened yesterday with the ETF and how far back the actual thread and narrative of that ETF goes. And he brings it all the way back, just as we've seen at the top of this note in the comments, right? Capenta says 6102 in reverse, right? So that's exactly what Balaji wrote this morning. Balaji wrote, history is running in reverse. The Bitcoin ETF is the spiritual reversal of Executive Order 6102. Back in 1935, they seized the gold, but now digital gold is back. 90 years ago, FDR and his fellow travelers rode the 20th century arc of centralization, right? And that's what it was. It was an arc of centralization. I always think of fiat in terms of entropic forces, entropy, right? And something that Bitcoin has that's different is entropy resistance. Even when you look at most computer systems, programming, which program doesn't just deprecate and become garbage? Even if you didn't do anything to it, right? It just becomes garbage. There is entropy even in basic programming, in video games, and in stupid things like that. Bitcoin has been the first computer system that I know of. I'm ignorant about the entire history of computer software and things like that, and entropy and physics within that. But as far as I understand, Bitcoin is the first system that is resistant to entropy because of its decentralized, distributed nature. Because there is no one version of Bitcoin, Bitcoin is simply the most popularly held version of the distributed ledger by the people running nodes. That actual architecture, just that little twist of fate, is what has allowed Bitcoin to create a new physics in the world that has solved entropy for these systems. Now, I've often said that the US dollar was an amazing innovation when it came out. It actually did amazing things, and the proof is in the pudding. We have had innovations that have helped people live healthier and wealthier lives globally. And I do believe that US dollar had its time in the sun when it was able to do this. Go back to the 1950s, when anyone pumping gas on single income could afford a home in America, could raise a big family. We had a baby boom because of it. So there was a time when this thing worked perfectly, right? Now, What was already started for these entropic forces, I don't deny. They might have been there right away. The 50s weren't great for everyone, right? I'll admit that as well. But nevertheless, what we're talking about here are the almost subconscious threads that have allowed us to build the society we live in, and now are allowing us to short the society we've built. So he goes on, right? He says that they rode the 20th century arc of centralization. The choke points of then new technologies for mass media and mass production allowed them to gain control over the population, recruit top talent for their brain trust, and seize the gold after a series of epic legal battles. So again, the people coming to the party here is important. This brain trust is something that we've been talking about a long time on the breakup, right? That our enemies are actually unimpressive now. But the smart people have already defected to our world. And that's why I brought up all these versus fights from this week, right? Jimmy Kimmel versus Aaron Rodgers, or Mark Cuban versus Elon Musk. And we've seen a lot of these versus battles lately. And it really is showing the difference in the quality of people on one side of the fight versus the other. And I've said for a long time that this is a major advantage that we have. It kind of looks a little bit like the conquistador time and what happened then. I brought up that if you ever seen the movie Apocalypto, for example, you'll see a little bit of what I'm talking about there. So he goes on and says those gold clause cases are forgotten today, but received as much contemporary coverage as 9/11 or the moon landing. So remember what he's saying, these epic legal battles go back to the 1930s and 6102. No one talks about it today, but at the time it was major. It was major news, right? And they were more important. They were the most important issue in the country, receiving far more coverage than seemingly comparable Supreme Court decisions like Roe versus Wade. So what he's saying here is that this was bigger than Roe versus Wade back in those days. The reason is that the transition from a gold-backed to fiat-backed system was comparable to a soft communist revolution, as the visible seizure of gold laid the groundwork for the invisible seizure of wealth via money printing. And the classically trained judges at the time fully understood this. Justice McReynolds' then famous dissent denounced the ruling, in the harshest terms, noting that the Constitution is gone and the dollar may be 30 cents tomorrow, 10 cents the next day, and 1 cent the day following. His exact quote is the following: "It seems impossible to overestimate the result of what has been done here this day. God knows I do not want to talk about much such matters, but it is my duty. The Constitution is gone. This is Nero in his worst form. We are confronted with a dollar which has been reduced to 60 cents, which may be 30 cents tomorrow, 10 cents the next day, and 1 cent the following day." McReynolds was right. It's been way worse than that, way worse than that. And we all know it, right? We all know it. So while the court was forced into a grudging institutional surrender by FDR's threat of court packing, the gold clause case affected every economic decision maker in the country, as it amounted to the US government explicitly defaulting on its bonds by seizing the assets of its citizens, laying the groundwork for a century of monetary debasement to come. Now all of that is unwinding. FDR's team could ride the wave of centralizing technology that built giant states around the world, but today technology favors decentralization. Personal computers, end-to-end encryption, mobile phones, and of course, cryptography. So he says, of course, cryptocurrency. I would add drones to this as well, just because I've been talking about the military reorchestration of a aircraft carrier versus drone swarms. I think you're going to see that soon. You know, I've seen people wondering for a while now when drones are going to start engaging with maritime fleets. It's any day, guys. It's any day. It's been 2 years since I predicted that you will see an aircraft carrier melt when drones confront it at sea. I think it's any day. I think by the summer you're going to see it, right? But here's the most important part, right, of what he's saying. Thus, top talent isn't being pulled into the government brain trust anymore. I saw that firsthand. I was there. Absolutely mentally handicapped people everywhere, right? Some of the dumbest people you'll ever meet. It's been brain drained out of the US establishment. And as a consequence, the epic legal battles are on balance going our way. Indeed, I would say we won this fight handily. It's not just the DC Circuit Court case. The ideological conflict between decentralization and centralization is reflected in the 3-2 vote for the Bitcoin ETF approval itself. read Pierce's brilliant pro-liberty approvals. That's Hester Pierce. I have the notes here. We're going to be talking about it. And Crenshaw's dour denial and Gensler's reluctant approval. You'll see the echoes of the gold clause case, but in reverse. This time, it is the centralized state that is being forced into a grudging institutional surrender. And a surrender it is, as Crenshaw's dissent makes clear. This is what she actually said about the ETF being approved. This is what a human being who's supposed to have, like, reason and logic and all these stupid things. This is not what you're seeing, guys. I'm going to read it to you. What you're seeing is someone who doesn't even understand their own subconscious. They have no feedback loop. They haven't even asked these questions. They exist on a type of plank way out at sea and are estranged from reality at this point, right? So here's what they say. There is no primary regulator for the Bitcoin spot markets. Spot Bitcoin exchange traded products will be participating in an unregulated, fragmented, continuously traded global free-for-all. Oh my God, guys, it's a global free-for-all, right? Even if there was a primary regulator for this market, much of it could be beyond the reach of US regulation. Oh my God, it'll be beyond the reach of a couple of losers sitting in some stupid office in Washington, D.C. that if it was nuked tomorrow, actually, I don't want anyone to die. I don't want anyone to die. But if DC was to disappear from planet Earth, there'd be a lot less conflict in the world. There'd be a lot less brainwashing in the world. And most people wouldn't really worry about the relative reach of the US government at that point, right? So what she's really worried about here is the literal reach of the US government. That's the reason why you should deny the ETF. It's beautiful. It couldn't be better. It just could not be better, right? So he says, let that sink in. This is what the US establishment truly fears. Not Bitcoin as fraud, but Bitcoin as freedom, right? They want to rule not just you, but the world. So they're scared of the prospect of a global free-for-all beyond the reach of US regulation. And they know that the spot ETF will bid up the price of self-custodied Bitcoin outside their control, just as Satoshi intended. So, since FDR's seizure of gold, our lives have revolved around the centralized state rather than the decentralized market. The state has had control for so long, we've forgotten what freedom is like. But now gold is slipping out of their hands and back into yours. And that's exactly what we've been saying. World War III, in the same way that this Executive Order 6102 set up the industrial military complex, it set up the US war machine to win World War II. What I've said many, many times, right, is that we never shut off the World War II war machine. All of the predicates to do what was done with 6102 was to get out of the Depression and start arming for the conflict. And it worked. However, we were supposed to get away from that once all the stuff ended, and we didn't. We literally turned ourselves into consumers in order to keep the war machine going so that we had the industrial base. Then we got rid of the industrial base. And now all we have is the consumerism, and that's it. And centralized power. Centralized power that uses a consumer base in order to prop up its control role in the state. So what actually happened yesterday, as far as I can tell, is the centralized forces actually sustained a major World War III loss, a major loss yesterday. And they can't actually come back from it, I don't think, because it's a concept that I've thought about for a long time in the Bitcoin world. It actually happened in the summer of 2019. I've argued this a few times. In the summer of 2019, when Facebook came out with its coin, I did a media tour, go on CNN and this and that, and what's going on, and what is this, and da-da-da-da. And of course, I wasn't interested in Libra and all that stuff. But what I said was, now people can see what we're doing. Everything you see today with the ETF, the forces of decentralization, that it would be beyond the control of the US government. I said, now all the cards are on the table. I was a little, not angry at Facebook, but I preferred to know, I preferred the idea that people didn't understand what we were doing, and that we could continue to operate with this incredibly subversive, decentralized technology without drawing the attention of the people who could put it down. So it was a risk, and I was fine with it. I thought we were okay, but the concept that I wanted to embrace at the time, and what I still think is real, was exit velocity. Exit velocity is a rocket science engineering concept where the speed that you need to get to space and break through the threshold and be in space, that's called exit velocity, right? So you need a certain amount of velocity to get into orbit. Now, I used exit velocity because it actually came from Peter Thiel and the folks around PayPal. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel both thought in those terms that if they could grow PayPal to a certain level, it could do. Now, if you guys don't know this, Peter Thiel wanted to make Bitcoin, couldn't figure it out. And so PayPal was his facsimile. And but the same decentralized forces were what he had in mind when he set up PayPal originally. You can go and read the history of Elon and Peter Thiel and PayPal, and this is what they had in mind. They didn't see Bitcoin, but this was what they wanted. So they used this term exit velocity, and I sort of borrowed that. So his whole point was to grow PayPal to a certain level, and once it was at that level, they didn't really have to listen to the regulators. Now, I don't think they got there, right? The tech wasn't there. The growth of the company wasn't there. It was definitely co-opted. So when I saw the Facebook thing happened and they had a bunch of hearings in Congress, if you remember, that's where Meltem Demirors went and I went down there, I was there, a whole bunch of people were there. Meltem popularized during that testimony the idea of a shitcoin, and Bitcoin was able to contrast with everything else in the market and come out perfect. And I said, I think we reached exit velocity over those days, those events, because what looked bad were the shitcoins and all of the centrally controllable technologies, and Bitcoin seemed like the perfect solution. And so the contrast there, to me, showed that the enemy would attack things like Facebook, but would leave Bitcoin alone, thereby ensuring our exit velocity and reaching of orbit of Earth. And the reason why I love the analogy of exit velocity and being in space is because the earthly forces of regulation and the gravity of all of these things simply can't work any longer, right? They don't affect Bitcoin. It's in space. So the gravity of a regulator, the physics of a regulator, the physics that involve themselves with centralizing forces, what Balaji is talking about here, was broken. And so I believed in 2019 we had already reached exit velocity. Now, what we did here was get into orbit with shields and protection, and now we've got actual weapons. So we're weaponized in space. Not only are we not going to be affected by the rules of the earthly realm, we can actually attack, and it's a totally different ballgame because of that. So, and what are we going to attack exactly? Well, so Balaji mentioned the different, so it was a 3-2 decision, right? Hester Pierce, who I've met many times, who was a great lady, really helpful, really funny, actually, just an all-around, nice person, good human being, did indeed have a really eloquent thing. So first of all, she used the Macbeth. She started with the Macbeth, quote, out damn spot, So basically because they've been obsessed over this Bitcoin ETF for so long, and she just wants the spot market out because she's been descending from these decisions for a long time. But here's what she say, right? She says it marks the end of an unnecessary but consequential saga. But here's the harms. Here's what she says happened over the last few years and why she asked for reflection and all that stuff. I'm not saying reflection. I'm saying indeed the harms that I'm about to mention, the ones she put in her list, are actually the things that are going to continue to kill the physics of the centralizing forces. So, and it puts us up in a perfect position, brings us back into what I've mentioned before with the Jerome Powell, the Fed Reserve Chair, who, I think he's a hostage. I think I hear like a kidnapped hostage talking when I hear him talk sometimes, because this is someone who understands, I think because he's a lawyer, understands exactly what's going on and tried to signal, hey, like as long as the U.S. is a rules-based order, the U.S. dollar has nothing to worry about, right? Wink, wink, nod, nod, honk, honk, zing, zing, right? So here's what Hester said, and here's what damage has actually been done to the centralized physics, not just the institution, the forces that would push towards centralization. So she says, first, our arbitrary and capricious treatment of applications in this area will continue to harm our reputation far beyond crypto. Reputation. the SEC. Now, remember, this is an important thing because when I went to law school, when I was a young lawyer, securities lawyers were, oh, they're so fancy, they're so smart. Wow, they must be the smart. They were the brain surgeons. They were the smartest law students. Right now, we know they're idiots. They're stupid. It's the easiest, dumbest field that exists. There's nothing stupider. It should all be erased. So here's what she says, right? Diminished trust from the public will inhibit our ability to regulate the markets effectively. True. It's 100% true, right? The saga will taint future interactions between the industry and our staff and will dampen the rich, informative dialogue that best protects investors. She got it right, right? Second, our disproportionate attention on these filings has diverted limited staff resources away from their mission for critical work. Over 10 years, likely millions of dollars of staff time has gone towards blocking these applications. Now, this is related to it, but it's also hilarious. Third, our actions have muddied people's understanding of what the SEC's role is, right? No one even understands what it does anymore, right? Congress did not authorize us to tell people whether a particular investment is right for them, but we have abused administrative procedures to withhold investments that we do not like from the public. Gensler even says this, we're not endorsing Bitcoin. Well, no one ever asked you to endorse it. That's not even close to your job. It's not even close to your job, right? And so him coming out and saying that further proves the point, right? They're not your investment advisor. They're not there to be your Hey, SEC, what's a good investment? You know, Gary, come down here and help me manage my portfolio, right? It would never happen. It's a retarded idea. This is also good, right? This is related to the second one, the disproportionate attention they placed on it. It created a Streisand effect, and she says it here. She says, fourth, by failing to follow our normal standards and processes in considering spot Bitcoin exchange-traded products, we have created an artificial frenzy around them. You have. They definitely have. Had these products come to market in the way other comparable products typically have, we would have avoided the circus atmosphere in which we now find ourselves. Fifth, we have alienated a generation of product innovators within our space. Our unreasonable approach to these applications has signaled that regulatory prejudice against new products and services can lead us to sidestep the new and unreasonably delay product launches. The industry has logged hundreds of meetings, filed submissions, withdrawals, and amendments, and ultimately had to resort to a costly legal battle to get us to do this today. Indeed, look, as someone who worked at Kraken, as someone who's a Kraken shareholder, I've seen them attack my old business for no conceivable reason whatsoever. We spent money years ago getting a bank license. We're one of the only groups on the planet that managed to get a US bank license since the 2008 meltdown. I think there's only 3 or 4. Cash App is one, We're one, some other one did one. There's hardly any new banks, Novo banks they're called in America, hardly any, right? So we did it and they wouldn't recognize us and then sued us for selling unregistered securities. That's just insane, right? It's insane. So that's what happened, right? So all of this, if you put it all together and you go back to what Scott Adams said about incompetence, Balaji said about brain drain, and you get to where we are, this is how we know we are winning World War III right now, right? So think about all the activity that's going on with Bitcoin, the types of things you're hearing from Hester, from Balaji, the actual intellectual capacity to tie it to 6102 in the 1930s and to make predictions about the SEC's role going forward, all these things, right? What do we get as a contrast to that? What did the European Union come up with? And this is their whole plan. This is it, guys. This is the enemy that we're dealing with, okay? So yesterday, the European Central Bank, while all this is going on, put out a little just tweet explaining what fiat money is, right? So this is actually what we're up against. This is what the brain drain has done. This is what centralized forces gathering the least competent among us and giving them power has produced. It's the Fanni Willis effect. It's the Politico Ray Epps effect. It's all of that, right? Here's what they actually said at the European Central Bank yesterday. Fiat money is not backed by commodities like silver or gold. Its value stems from people accepting it. This is fostered by a credible central bank and the legal tender status, which means people are in principle obliged to accept it at face value. That's it. That's their plan. This is their marketing. This is their everything. This is all of it, right? They're obliged because a credible central bank said so. How much longer do you think that's going to work? Germany is filled with protests right now. Poland's going to have a bunch. They're going to try some democracy fortification over in Serbia. Good thing the Bitcoin king is there to put an end to that. I think Hungary, or not Hungary, Serbia is going to go monarchist after this. It's such a fraud, right? So the forces at play here and the quality of people at play really make the contrast for what's going on in World War III. The brain drain has happened. The smart people are coming on the side of decentralization, on the side of the individual. World War III is about individuals versus state capacity, individual capacity versus state capacity. State capacity requires centralization of media and banking in order to support its scam. But that's falling apart faster than you can measure. And the perfect examples that you see are things like Vivek yesterday. Like Vivek Ramaswamy yesterday did one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And this is that centralization of government of media that is so necessary for this that I'm talking about. So he goes to the media and he's just sipping water. He's just sitting there. He's like this, he's got his bottle. The media is trying to, treat him like a conspiracy theorist about something, right? And then he goes, hold on. Didn't you all lie about Trump-Russia collusion? Raise your hand here who got that right and who has acknowledged they got it wrong if they reported it as if it was truly Russian disinformation and that Trump was colluding with Russia. Who got that right? And then everyone's like, but that's what they said, right? And then he goes, okay. What about the Hunter laptop, right? And then put your hand up if you got the Hunter laptop story right, or you admitted you got it wrong and have adjusted your worldview since, right? So, and he gets everyone else in the room to put up their hand if they, to his question. Of course, the journalists are still sitting there, like, except one New York Post person does because they work for the New York Post, the publication that actually did the thing and it got it suppressed. And he was like, and look what you guys did. You went into people's DMs from sharing the story. You shut the story down here and there. Look at all the things that happened. You don't think that's a bit suspicious? He says. He goes, well, what about the COVID leak? Which one of you knew it was a lab leak and which one of you said it was from the bats at the thing and people ate bats? Right? And then they're like this again, right? So he just beat the shit out of these people and he did it calmly. He never got angry. Remember what I've said for a long time, we can't get angry, right? Anger is just not the way to do it. Once you know that Politico is a mockingbird asset, once you know people like Phil Bump and what they're up to, once you know what Brian Stelter and his book deals are about, once you understand that, it's not that they're wrong and stupid. That's what would make you angry. Look how stupid that person is. Don't bother with that. They're not stupid necessarily. Some of them are. But the stupidity is secondary to their subconscious being manipulated where they literally think they're doing the right thing and they're on the side of the good and all of that stuff. Really, their problem is their IQ is a little too low. They're not really aware of the cosmic forces around them and they're just drowning, right? And Vivek says that exactly, right? He was asked about Justin Trudeau. What do you think about Justin Trudeau? He goes, yeah, he's a useful puppet. Certainly not a shining intellect, he calls Justin Trudeau. Being used as a pawn to advance transnational agenda and just an idiot, like who's getting blackmailed according to most people that I know. I know some of his family members and stuff. They say blackmail, right? You get those, you get that understanding of how much stronger the side for decentralization and Bitcoin actually is from an intellectual, cognitive level. And you start to see that the war that we're in, the combatants matter, and having the smart people on your team is one of the most important things you can do. Now, I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday, but we're going to be doing our Jeff Bezos Bitcoin watch in 2024. I predicted Jeff Bezos would find Bitcoin in 2024. He already had Saylor over at his house in late 2023 after he did the Lex Friedman podcast and talked about his desire to change time preference for humans. Of course, changing time preference and having long-term thinking would absolutely eradicate the centralized forces of governance that we know today overnight. He called it a giant lever to solve our biggest, most incredible problems. But he just went and had Amazon Prime TV lay off a bunch of people. They did a huge firing for all the money they lost on Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. The stupidest never watched that show, obviously. So that show is just a complete dog shit failure. They spent $1 billion on it, and now it led to all kinds of layoffs, cuts, Amazon Prime redoing its stuff. So nothing to do with him becoming a Bitcoiner today, but it's in the vein of which side is Jeff Bezos going to be on. I continue to predict he's going to come on the good side and will leave behind all of these losers at the Washington Post and the Pentagon and everywhere else. And so I don't know if I'm going to be right, but what I saw with the Rings of Power thing means he's another one of these sort of high IQ, high performing people like Vivek, like Balaji, like Scott Adams, all these people that are joining this one side, I think anyway, are going to make all the difference. Right? We don't need the sludge people. The sludge people don't add anything to anyone. They're just out there. So we've got this opportunity now, and I think it's going to win. Oh, Vivek did predict as well. Let me give you a Vivek prediction, right? So he says the so-called mainstream polls are rigged. A must-read article from the Iowa Standard. The operator asked who the individual was supporting, and then asked if Donald J. Trump was not on the ballot, who would they support, Nikki or whatever. He ends up predicting that his prediction in the end is that, here it is. Narrow it to a two-horse race between Trump and a puppet they control. Eliminate Trump, trot the puppet into the White House. His prediction is next up, Ron joins Nikki as VP. Ron may not know it yet, but he won't have a say in the matter. So I think his prediction is right. I think we've got the stronger IQ people on our team. We only need those ones to win. The forces of centralization are broken, and the forces that will provide the impetus for decentralization are ascendant. And with those, I don't think there's any way we lose. And yesterday was a big day. I mean, I get it. It's a boomer thing. It's a boomer thing. But getting all that wealth transfer from the boomers is part of how we win and unwind World War II. So it's an important thing, right? All right. Let's see what we got. I'm missing a couple quotes here. Abandoning fiat is our version of burning the ships. Yeah. Regulation. Jose here, funny guy. I don't know if it's just me, but two scary trends that I've been experiencing during these clown era is one, increased numbers of morons. Yeah. Time is quicker now than ever before. Muslim Bitcoiner, I don't know if you've got kids, but kids slow it down a little bit. They really do. I don't know about that, but it is true. There's way more morons out there. That's entirely true, Muslim Bitcoiner. I agree with just about everything RFK says until he starts praising FDR Wilson, and then I'm horrified. Yeah. I haven't heard him do that, but I bet. Good morning, all. I'm getting a late start, so it's Nolan 2x for me. It works in 2x. I don't speak too fast, I don't think. RFK lost me at having government-backed housing loans. We already saw how that messes up the incentives with government backing student loans. Yeah, I get it, Jose. At the same time, look, he's still from that generation. I think if he had to choose, he wouldn't choose this, but it is a major stress Americans have, and there's no good reason for it. We have enough land, we have enough of that, all that stuff. So look, the future of the US dollar is as a type of government policy money, right? I call it policy money. It's political money. And I think that the taxes aren't going to come from income anymore. They're going to have some money. And if they put it into, affordable housing for people, as long as it doesn't take over city centers, I don't really care. I don't know about housing loans. I'm not sure the mechanics, but it's not a big enough force, Jose, to make a difference. And I'll chalk it up as just him trying to cover a flank so that he can consolidate, a bit of support. We should watch J Pow's eyes to see if he's blinking Morse code, Jeffy says. I'm not sure if I'm right about it. It's just, it's a pattern I can't stop seeing, right? I can't stop seeing Jerome Powell as a hostage, and he's trying to signal that he's not in control, but I could be wrong. I guess I didn't hear about that one, but I still think he is legit, and we just need to educate him more. Oh yeah, about RFK. Yeah, he's very legit, guys. Very legit. Remember, all we need from RFK is, and I still think he will, if Trump wins or if Vivek wins, he'll have a role in that administration. You've got to have bipartisanship in the administrations going forward. So no matter what, remember, only he gets to vote this year. Only RFK's vote counts, right? He's the kingmaker at 20-something% as an independent. So he chooses who the next president is. And I do believe he won't choose Biden or any Democrat. And so he, I think, wants to be there pushing the space lock button, right? If you're going to be doing that stuff, and I think we should do that stuff. I think there are people like Fauci that have to pay big time. And anyone who helped with the Epstein's, I think Jamie Dimon's got to be dropped. I do. I mean, dropped. Anyone and I have respect for Jamie Dimon's, like, what he does. He's not an idiot at all. And I would take him on the Bitcoin side, but still, he's got explaining to do with the corruption and the crimes that he allowed to happen at his bank. So eventually, I do think he gets airlocked. And there's only a few people that can do that credibly. And I hate to say it for RFK, but after what happened to his family, he's got a right to push the button. And Trump can't push the button. I know that. I don't want Vivek pushing the button either. He's a young guy who might be an important force in further decentralizing America as we go forward and rearranging the republic to be a lot more decentralized. So I don't want him involved necessarily in the messy business. But I do want, and Fetterman might be there. I think Fetterman has a place in any administration. My Fetterman predictions are becoming better and better. Have you seen Fetterman now? He's becoming a darling. He's been talking about white genocide in South Africa. You don't hear that a lot from a Dem. So we love Fetterman. Right? Except for his broker dealer wallet hosting thing and decentralized wallet, but I don't think he understands it. But we're Fetterman fans. Fetterman is is part of our choices, right? All right, let me Bitcoin running and fiat running scared. Congrats to all breakup gang. This is just the beginning. Indeed. SEC is there to protect you from being stupid. Imagine what would happen if poor people could invest in businesses before the IPO pump and dumps. Love the coffee and broadcast. Finally catching a live show. Welcome. 1 BTC equals 1 BTC. This is the age of clowns. Brilliant. It sure is. Boomer moron here. Stop hating. So yeah, we love the boomers. Choo-choo. I'm not an anti-boomer. I love the boomers. Right? No problem with the boomers. RFK uses Bayesian reasoning, adjusts with new. He sure does, Sergio. You're correct about that. I have seen him learn as he goes, and I remain a fan of RFK. I do. I think it's hard to deny at this point that Vivek is not the best candidate of all, though. I mean, it's impossible. Trump is it's art. He's an artist, and what he does and conjures amongst his own base is unique, and I would never want to change it. But there's a cost to that, which is the mental illness he induces in others. It seems to me like Vivek is able to do the same proactive communication that Trump does, not quite at the same level, but he doesn't cause the repercussion mental illness and the Trump derangement syndrome flare-ups. I don't have to sit here and explain to you what Vivek meant about something, right? You kind of have to do that a lot with Trump. You gotta kind of say, no, this is what he really meant. He wasn't really being, I think it's hilarious when he makes his jokes about I'll only be a dictator for one day. right? It's hilarious. It's hilarious. But I understand humor. You got to remember the Democrats don't understand humor, and the media certainly doesn't understand humor. So they never give him any credit for his funniness. Did you see the letter he wrote Mark Cuban when Mark? So apparently before Twitter, he would troll people all the time, and he wrote a letter to Mark Cuban uh, because Mark Cuban, I guess, had a show, something like The Apprentice, but it wasn't exactly. And Trump says to him, oh, I noticed your show was canceled. Little when I wrote you months ago congratulating you on our show, little did we know what a disastrous failure it was going to turn out to be. He goes, just this is an offer. If you want to contact me, if you ever want to do a new show, I'll be happy to give you advice. And then he writes, sincerely, Donald Trump. Little did we know at that time what a failure your show is going to be. Imagine getting a letter from Donald Trump like that. Fuck. How mad would that make you if you were Mark Cuban? It would make you mad, but funny. It's funny. You got to be able to laugh. BlackRock running Bitcoin. I don't know about that, Robert. Oh, I get it. Running Bitcoin as in Fetterman 2024. And decentralized constitutional interest. This is so impressive. This is what is so impressive about breakup sessions. Well, that's what America is going to turn into, a decentralized republic. The states will have some form of centralized capacity. I wouldn't even call it that. They'll have capacity. They'll have state capacity. I believe federal state capacity is going to shrink to nothing. My company developed a jab for TDS flare-ups. I'll sell it to you for $42 billion. I think the reality I'm hoping for is Vivek as Trump, VP Trump back to the throne. Yeah, only way the math balances. I think you're right, Brian. I think because what you want is not an active Trump. Actually, you want Trump just there for it's as shocking as a space drop. In a sense, it will shock people, right? Like, what's going on here? Why would people still like him? I thought he was an insurrectionist, racist, Nazi, Hitler, also Satan. So that should pry open a few people's brains to what happened to them, how abused they've been by the brainwashers. But I don't want, he's too old. I don't want him like on every file, right? I don't want him like engaging and, he's got to become like a type of king. He's got to chill out and just go to sports and maybe build a couple of his federal cities. That would be great, right? I want him to build the freedom cities. Like that's like, maybe he should focus on Washington, D.C. Remember he said he wants to turn Washington into like a beautiful city. Focus on that, real estate, get back to his actual job, real estate. Take very few files, show us what a modern US president should look like, which is to literally put your feet up, like literally. I don't want speeches on everything. I don't want him weighing in like Obama did on urban violence and stupid shit that a president has no business talking about. It's not even in his toolbox. He can't fix those things. So admit what the presidential toolbox is, only wield those tools, chill the F out, right? Now, and Robert says Trump needs to retire. Well, retirement is a communist word, right? It's what you do to horses and beaten down communist people. Retired is not the word. He needs to recalibrate and not use so much energy because anything can happen at that age, right? Anything can happen at that age. So, but he's credibly pulling off young candidate for president, I would say, right? He's credibly pulling that off. The flying cars, the freedom cities, like he's doing just fine on all that stuff. And he looks more aware than ever. And the stand-up stuff, like his one on Biden trying to get off stage, right? His like physical stand-up is also excellent, right? His new physical stand-up on Biden trying to get off stage is top quality. So he should do a couple of rallies, a couple of stand-up bits, sit back, make DC beautiful, do some real estate stuff for the federal government, try out these new cities. I think RFK should get a big say in the federal city experiment because RFK, as a recovering heroin addict, really can help the opioid crisis with these sort of poor town farm cities. So I think if you mix his idea for drug rehabilitation encampments, cities outside of the city where you can send people to a rural area to either take drugs, live homeless, or have an avenue to get off of them. If you do those two like that, put those two ideas together, federal lands, rehabilitation, future cities, I think you've got a really good portfolio for RFK and Trump. But everything else goes to Vivek. Vivek does all like an actually engaged vice president who acts as president. And there's a precedent for this. It is exactly what happened after World War II. It's exactly what happened when Eisenhower became the president. Eisenhower, as supreme commander of Allied forces, was made president of America for various reasons, right? He was a German. America wanted to have a rapprochement with Germany. He spoke German family, Eisenhower. There was a lot of reasons. It's the reason why he was chosen to be the supreme commander anyway, because he was German and could credibly deal with German people in a not abusive way. So Eisenhower as president, he admitted he was too old and didn't, and he didn't even have a political party, right? He was drafted to the Republicans, but both parties wanted him. So he became a Republican. And what did he do that was so clever? He chose the smartest Republican in the field by far. I mean, Nixon, you gotta go back to understand exactly how head and shoulders Nixon was above everyone else in Congress at the time, a lot like Vivek today. Nixon was like Vivek is today. He was so much smarter, so much more made for the job of politics and all of that it was almost unfair. He was perfect. And so he became at a very young age the vice president of the United States, and a very active one. And he was vice president for 8 years before he ran against Kennedy. And perhaps in a scam election, some people say he should have won right then and there. The world would have been a very different place. He ended up indeed winning in 1968, and then has his own form of assassination by the deep state. But the deep state had already grown powerful by then, and he couldn't stop it, right? So he would have been someone who stopped the deep state from growing to that extent. He was not that kind of a person. My boat's been wiped. My boat's been wiped. Hanging with Vanilla Ice and the Ninja Turtles. Enjoy your day, peeps. This is the only one like it. Indeed. Yeah. So Trump does need to retire, but we love him. Trump needs cognizant subordinates. He is a boss. Yes. No. Isn't it amazing too? Trump is always boss, no matter where he goes. He's just boss, right? Like there's only one Trump mindset, right? Always in a suit. He's never not in a suit, and he's the boss. It's kind of cool, right? It's who he is, right? It's who he is. I think the Eisenhower presidency rhymes with the Trump return. I don't like any of the political BS, but that's what it feels like in the reverse history. Yes, I think you're right, Brian. That's how I see it anyway. I see Trump as it's kind of a victory lap presidency for the purpose of peace, in a sense. Hard to imagine, but that's kind of the point of it. So there you go. Nolan is great at 2x. Yeah, I'm not from the Valley. I'm not from Silicon Valley, so I don't speak in Silicon Valley accent. I speak quick enough, but not that quick. Balaj had a great piece yesterday. Not sure if you talked about it earlier. Yeah, that was the piece I was reading. It was more or less his history in reverse piece. Yes. And Nick Carter gives us some advice, right? Make sure to dunk on a no coiner tomorrow. We had to drag the SEC kicking and screaming into what should have been a straightforward approval. Like a deadbeat dad forced to pay alimony, we literally had to get the court to intervene. We had to deal with the GBDC turning into a toxic wrecking ball that took down half the industry. We had to deal with 200% basis point fees. Some of us have waited 10 years for this. Do not be polite. Do not take the high road. Do not be gracious in victory. Tomorrow we seize the spoils of war. Indeed, we won. We won. And the winning, remember how Trump used to end, I'll end it with this, how Trump used to end all of his speeches. We're going to win with the military. We're going to win with the black people. We're going to win with women. We're going to win with Mexican people. We're going to win. And you're going to say to me, Nolan, I'm sick of winning. I can't take it anymore. And I'm going to say, no, more winning. No. They were the greatest speech ends ever. You know, you're going to say, Mr. President, Mr. President, I'm so sick of winning. No, we're going to keep winning forever and always. The winning will never end from now on. All right, team, have a great day. I shall see you all tomorrow and enjoy it. Indeed, take Nick Carter's advice. Dunk on the no coiners. Peace. Oh, shit. Let me just get a couple. I forgot to do the Rumble quotes. I always say I will do the Rumble ones. Let me see what I missed from the live chat. BitConnect. Whoops. Morning, Bitcoiners. Anyone else doing DCA with direct deposit and auto conversion? Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. DCA is the way to go. ETFs are now competing to fund BTC development from core devs to FOSS projects. Was worrisome, but also helpful because the suits will be funding self-sovereignty. That's exactly it. Yeah. Hester Pierce basically threw Gary under the bus. Yeah, well, she should have. It was amazing to read. And she's not lying. Kathy Wood on Twitter live stream openly disparaged Gary and the SEC. The ETF side of Wall Street hates and disrespects the SEC, which is what we want. Which is what we want. Sharia Bitcoin. Of course you're allowed to win, Sharia Bitcoin. Of course you're allowed. I can't permit you to win, but it's just winning. It's just we're winning, right? We need to reintroduce the term prig into the American lexicon. It perfectly describes the liberal left. A prig is someone who takes himself too seriously. They're going to become like my actual prediction for liberalism and Trudeau was that Trudeau would become the punchline of a joke and that it would, in fact, infect all prigs to become just punchlines. And so that's where we're headed. All right. That's all I got. Peace, everyone.